Going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another Tottenham update. We got 2 transfer stories to get through today. We did bring the news yesterday that Rob Edwards and Johan Lange have completed their plans for the summer transfer window, and some
Rob McKenzie, not Rob Edwards.
Rob McKenzie, sorry, have completed their plans for this coming transfer window. And some news has broken today, so let's get straight into it. Corriere del Magna reported last night that Marcus Edwards wants to return home and rejoin Tottenham Hotspur this summer. Spurs have the winger on their radar, but he has explicitly expressed his desire to return back to the club. Spurs still retain a 35% sell-on clause from his previous sell to Sporting. Alistair Gold chimed in and he says, no approach yet, but he understands that Spurs are keeping an eye on the situation with Marcus Edwards for a number of reasons. Marcus Edwards would be happy to return to Tottenham. Sporting are understood to value him at £15 million before further add-ons, and that would lift the price tag significantly, or slightly, sorry. The Spurs do retain a 35% sell-on cut. That would take the initial base figure to around £9.75 million. So after confirming Timo Werner through the door, Marcus Edwards could be that second winger addition this summer.
Yeah, no, they say a number of reasons. I think the number being 9.75 million. I think that's maybe the main reason they're considering this, because I don't think Spurs would even be entertaining this deal if it wasn't that kind of figure. And for me, this deal, hearing this news is very frustrating. It also says obviously Tottenham want to keep on top of their homegrown issue, which is why they're looking at Marcus Edwards this summer. Now, if that is the case, and Spurs are looking to sign a winger for maybe a undervalue price for a winger who maybe could fit the system, but you want a cheaper deal, then why have we gone for Timo Werner if we're looking to be on top of the homegrown issue? If it's such a big thing that we're looking at Marcus Edwards for 10 million, then why the hell have we just signed Timo Werner on a season-long loan? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's a bit of a slap in the face. It's a bit of a joke, to be honest, that if Tottenham are seriously considering signing Marcus Edwards, because we were told, but you'd assume we've gone for Timo Werner on a season-long loan deal because we're looking to not spend a big outlay on a substitute winger, so we can spend on other bigger on other positions. And now we're hearing that on the other winger that we are going to potentially sign as Marcus Edwards for 10 million. So where's the money being spent? Where are we upgrading? Marcus Edwards does not represent a major upgrade in our squad. I think if we were to sign him instead of Werner, that's a bit more of a tolerable situation, in my opinion. But the fact that we're looking at potentially signing both, how does that represent Spurs moving in the right direction or making statements of intent in the transfer window and upgrading in certain situations? Edwards would not get into any of the top 6 teams. Neither would Timo Werner in that case. But why are we signing 2 backups? When are we signing the starting wingers? When are we starting the difference makers? When are we starting to look at main players? And I know we haven't signed Edwards yet, so don't want to go too overboard, but the fact that we're even considering it is very, very frustrating to me.
Yeah, completely agree. Couldn't agree more. We let him go, 4 or 5 years ago now, because of attitude problems. He was touted by Pochettino, having a big future ahead of him. Went as far as to say he's a mini Messi. And look, he is a boy with talent. I'm not going to get away from that. He is a boy with talent, really good coast control, direct style of play. We saw firsthand against Tottenham a couple of years back in the Champions League what he can do to and he absolutely destroyed us in certain points of both those legs. But when you're assessing his time at Sporting Lisbon, I think he's been a bit up and down. I don't think he's been unbelievable, but he hasn't been bad. I think look, it's a frustrating signing, whichever way you want to slice it, if this one does go through. You look at the winger options, if this does go through, you've got Werner, Sonny, potentially even Mikey Moore, but you can't even count him at this stage on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you can have Brennan Johnson, Marcus Edwards, and potentially Kulusevski, judging on where they think he's going to fit in. And I don't think that represents any sort of a massive upgrade of what we needed. We were told that Ange wants big upgrades in the attacking department, and particularly the wings, where we saw in this season gone by, it was nowhere near good enough for what he wants to do. So if we're not massively upgrading or even upgrading to any sort of degree, then what does next season look like? Is it just going to look like more of the same of the season before? I don't know. It's just very frustrating for me. We moved into the stadium, and now we're in the second season of a project where we're supposed to be taking up to the next level, and we're going to be looking at Timo Werner and Marcus Edwards again. It's very frustrating. I think that if these are the signings on the winger, we have to go big on a number 9. We have to go big on a number 6 and the other holes that we do have in the squad. But judging by the rumours and judging by these winger additions, I don't have any hope in hell that we're going to do that.
No. At the moment, it's very frustrating because I think for me, it was very clear to me during the season that a winger was a position we needed major upgrades in. And I didn't think it was good enough how our wingers performed, to be honest. So, we're only looking at him because he's going to cost 9.75 million. And I understand that is tempting to look at. And for especially a player who I do think has a lot of ability, has performed quite well in the Champions League. If you look at his record for Sporting, I think it's 50 games, 26 goal contributions. So it's not bad. It's pretty good. But it's not like, in the Portuguese league, he's... Obviously, it's good numbers, but it's not like world-class numbers. You don't look
at it and look at what he's produced and be like, all right, this is the guy to take us to the next level.
And especially the season just gone, he's only had 8 goal contributions, 4 goals, 4 assists. Albeit, apparently, he's suffered with a few injuries and a bit of illness since January, which limited his game time. But all that being said, he's 25 years old now, so I'm not saying he's old, but he's not exactly a youngster. He's not someone who's going to immeasurably improve, you would think, from this point. This is probably going to be the Marcus Edwards we're going to see. And I'm not saying he's a bad player, but we're looking for game changers. We're looking for people who are going to close the gap. And I'm not convinced that Marcus Edwards is that guy. And yes, I'm sure, all this time in Portugal he's built his career. I'm sure those attitude problems aren't as prevalent as they were before. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just guessing the fact that, a big club like Sporting in Portugal did sign him, and they do seem fairly happy with him, albeit, 15 million is not a massive price for a player you're very happy with, is it? We've seen Sporting sell in previous years for big money, so they're not afraid to ask for what their player's worth. So if they're demanding 15 million for Edwards, that shows me how much they value him, and that's not very high. So for me, I don't know. I just feel like it makes a joke of the Werner signing. That's all I would say on this potential deal, and that's the most frustrating thing. If we hadn't signed Werner, I'm not that against it. But we have, so why are we going for another cheap option? It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah,
very, very frustrating news coming out from Correa della Magna and Alistair Gold. But I want to know from you guys out there, what is your opinions if Timo Werner and Marcus Edwards are our only wing signings from now until the end of the transfer window? Because if we do sign Marcus Edwards, I don't think we're signing another winger from now until the end of the transfer window. I don't even think there's place for them unless there's a surprise sale that goes out the door. I just can't see it. But I mean, look, we are very frustrated. I think I can speak for both of us in this. We are very frustrated, but I actually think Marcus Edwards is probably a better signing than Timo Werner.
I'll probably say so. I think he's probably got a bit of a higher ceiling. And we looked at the data in our video, our targets video, and he does profile pretty well. But again, it's in the Portuguese league, so all those caveats. And also he's one of the better teams in the Portuguese league, so he's going to be dominating a lot of the time on the ball, creating chances. But in terms of his profile, he does profile well, but obviously he is quite small. There are also physical question marks over him, whether he can do it in the Premier League, albeit, to be fair to him, when he has played against Spurs in the Champions League, he did really well. I remember he scored against Arsenal in the Europa League as well. So he has done it against English teams before in European competitions. Maybe that suggests it wouldn't be so much of a step to be in the Premier League. But whether he can do it consistently week in, week out, it's another question. I understand the deal, and it's a smart deal. English, 25, fairly young, has got ability, also came through the Tottenham Academy. So there's a lot of plus marks to the deal. But it just doesn't sit right with me. We've just signed Timo Werner, and all of a sudden we're saying, actually, we need to get on top of the homegrown issue. I was like, okay, fine. Some wide sign Werner for another year. Makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's just more box ticking FC, like I've been talking about, like I spoke about with the rumours of the Kyle Walker-Peters thing. we're bringing in players to tick boxes as opposed to take us on to the next level, and that's the most frustrating thing about it for me. Let's go on and talk about Ivan Toney. Peter O'Rourke from Football Insider says that Tottenham could sign Brentford star Ivan Toney for a surprise fee of just £40 million this summer. Brentford are reluctantly ready to allow the England international to move on once the transfer window reopens next month. Previously suggested the Bees were looking for a fee of a region of £100 million to let Toney leave the club in January, and the fee is now significantly less, with £40 million could be enough to prize the forward away from West London ahead of his contract expiring in June 2025. I've gone on record to say a number of times that I'd prefer us to go for other targets as opposed for Ivan Toney, and I still feel that way. But when you're looking at the targets that we're bringing in, Werner and Marcus Edwards, I feel Toney is a massive step up from those kind of targets.
Look, he's a really good player. I know he didn't have the best end of season at Brentford, but he's shown he's Premier League proven. I think he's a really good all-round player. He's actually quite a good threat in behind. He's a good threat in the air. He's a really great hold-up player, albeit once he comes to Tottenham, he's going to have to play a completely different way than he did at Brentford, because at Brentford it was a very much a transitional kind of way of playing. They hit him very early. He played in a lot of space. He used to play in Buemo and on goal a lot of the time. So he's going to have to adjust, albeit I don't think it's going to be as much of an adjustment playing that way as it would be for like a winger, because I think that's a different kind of way. But I really like Toney. I think he's a really good player. I think 40 million is a pretty good price for a player of his quality. There are question marks about his attitude, but I do think, in my opinion, if he was to come to Tottenham, I think that would represent a very big move for him. And I do think, actually, as much as he's had problems with his PR, and obviously he got banned for betting. He had those incidences on camera when he was on holiday, saying things about Brentford. He's been twerking bigger clubs when he's come back from his ban as well, when Brentford have been backing him all the way. But when he is on the pitch, I don't think there's any questioning. He gives everything, and his attitude is always top notch. And I think you don't develop in the way he has without having a very good attitude. You've got to remember, he was a very good player in the Championship as well. He used to bang in the goals for fun in the Championship, and has made that step up in the Premier League, improving year on year, before obviously having that ban this season. So, for one, I do think there are potentially better targets out there, but 40 million, homegrown as well, so he is English, so he does help with that. I would be shocked if Tottenham don't seriously consider going for 40 million, especially if other teams aren't going to be involved. Because I think you got a potential of a very big upgrade there in Ivan Toney.
You're looking at the teams in the Premier League that need a striker. I think it's Arsenal. Is there anyone else apart in the top six that need a striker?
There's rumours that Nunes might be moving on, so maybe Liverpool could be looking at one. Maybe Chelsea, but they got Jackson at the moment. United could maybe want competition for Højlund. Potentially, they've only got Højlund. So I reckon there might be some competition, but apparently some other teams have gone a bit cold on him when they were looking at him. So I wouldn't necessarily say. I'd say we're in a good position, I reckon, if we want him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I feel like
West Ham apparently want him.
Yeah, that's true. I think if it's a shootout between Spurs and West Ham, surely we got to back ourselves to get him over the line. But I think if he is going for 40 million, I think that's a deal that Daniel Levy will absolutely lap up, to be honest. And let's say, for argument's sake, we do go for him, and we go into the season with Werner, Son on the left, Toney, Richarlison through the middle, Brennan and Marcus Edwards and potentially Kulusevski on the right. I mean, compared to the other teams in the top six, surely it still doesn't match up.
Not for me. I think you still need a real quality winger, which I think look at our wingers, and they're all good players. Don't get me wrong, but I look at the wingers in the who are in the teams above us, and they just have players who are in a different level, and we don't quite have that. So we're still missing a real top class winger in that squad, and it's unfortunate if we put our eggs in the Werner and Edwards basket as opposed to really taking that position to the next level. Yeah,
and it's just really frustrating because you go back a couple of years, you had prime Son, prime Kane, and even in the second half of the season, in the first year when Conte first came in, and it was like prime Kulusevski at that point, and you're looking at our front line at that point, and you're saying, like, do we have the best front line in the country at that point? And now you're saying, if we do make these signings, we don't even have a front line that's comparable to anyone in the top six. That's the reality.
Well, I wouldn't say top six. I wouldn't say comparable to the top six. I'll disagree with that. But I'm saying the top three, definitely.
Why? You got Aston Villa, who have got really good players there that I don't think any of our signings would get into their team. You got Newcastle even, who finished, 8th, 7th? I'm not sure if any of them would get into their team, maybe on the right wing. Who else you got in the top six? Who finished Chelsea? Who did Chelsea have up front?
Jackson.
Yeah, I think maybe Chelsea, but I think their players as well have got maybe levels to go, and they're very young players, so they can definitely grow into it. So definitely the top four.
I look at Villa, and I've obviously Newcastle with Isaac and Gordon, very good players, but that's just two players. I look at Villa. Watkins had a great season, but I look at our front lines. I don't think they're not comparable. I reckon obviously Isaac gets in our team, Watkins gets in our team. But other than that, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion in terms of...
If we had Anthony Gordon, he'd be playing a lot of minutes in our team.
I'm not saying he's not a good player. I'm just saying you said it's not comparable. I just disagree with that. I don't think it's not a comparable situation. I think very much our front lines stack up against the other teams apart from the top three.
Not well.
If we get these other players, if we get Toney...
I would take, out of Villa's front line, I would take all of them. And I think they all start for us. Watkins would start for us in the number 9. Leon Bailey would get a lot of minutes for us. Even Moussa Diaby would get a lot of minutes for us.
That's just the front three. I'm talking about a squad, a set of forward players, right? Maybe they're best, maybe better than us. But in terms of a set of forward players, I'm not necessarily sure that that's true.
But you got to look at everything into it. And yeah, fine, the squad and the options. And I don't even think the options, the quality is just low. That's the point. The quality is low. And do you think that with that quality that we can get close to the top 4 next season?
Yeah, I think we can.
I'm not so sure.
Top 4 we can, but that's not what we want. I think we can definitely challenge and get into the top 4 with that front line, but I don't think top 4 is what we want. I don't think that should be the ambition of this club. That's what Ange keeps saying, that we should be looking higher. We should be looking to challenge for big things. And the whole point of this summer and having someone like Ange here and this project is to close the gap on the top 3 and not bother about top 4. We could have got top 4 last season if we tried a bit hard enough, but it fell through. The goal next season shouldn't be getting top 4. The goal next season should be closing the gap on the top 3. And I don't think those forward players do that. That's what I'm frustrated about. In terms of getting top 4, I think we can definitely be in the top 4 with that forward line, in my opinion.
I just don't know. I mean, you're looking at the competition getting a lot more fierce next season, albeit you've got a few teams that are going to be in transition. You don't know what Chelsea are going to be like. You don't know what Liverpool are going to be like. Yeah, so maybe you're right. If things go our way in terms of teams in transition, I think we can get top 4. But if things go well at other clubs, then I don't really have a hope for us for top 4 next season.
But that's not what I want. It's not about top 4.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's where we're at. Like, we're worried about even top 4. We're not even thinking about bridging the gap to the top 3.
It depends where we sign in midfield and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, it depends what kind of players we sign. But I think that, Toney and Richarlison are very good players. You've still got Son there. You've still got, Brennan Johnson's going to be developing. Decky's still a very good player. And obviously the new signings of Werner and Edwards, I don't know what they would add, but maybe they would still add something, wouldn't they? They're not going to get 0 goals, 0 assists, I assume, anyway. So they would add something. So I think as a collection of forward players, it's not bad, but it's not the upgrades to the ambition that we want from this football club, especially having moved into the new stadium. We really want to start pushing the boundaries of challenging for big trophies, closing the gap on what was the top 3 last season. If we want to just be in a perennial top 4 challenge, I think that is probably good enough, and that's when Levy's head's at. It might be good enough to get top 4, so maybe we can do that. But if we want to be serious about next season, we want to actually give Ange tools to challenge the top teams, then it's nowhere near good enough, and that's the reality.
I don't even think you're solidifying your place in the top 4 with these kind of signings. Not at all. I think you'll be lucky. You need other teams to maybe drop off or not fulfill their potential next season if Spurs are going to be solidified in that top 4. And when we ended last season, we said a good season next year is to solidify our place in the top 4 and to get a trophy behind our belt. And I don't feel confident with these signings that we're making steps and strides towards that. I just don't.
I think I never said solidify. I said top 4 challenge. I definitely think you could get top 4. I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm not saying we'll blow it away, but I definitely think you could be in the top 4 race with that squad, and with that we were in a top 4 race last season with that, and so I think improving on that, you could definitely be in the top 4 race. You could definitely get it, but that's not what excites me. So that's what I'm going to say.
All right, well, there you have it. That is the transfer news for today. We'll see if anything else breaks throughout the day or weekend. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.